I walked into my bedroom and froze. My husband was tangled in sheets with my daughter-in-law. The betrayal hurt, but what destroyed me was her smile when she saw me. I simply closed the door. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Now, let me tell you how I got to that moment and what happened next. Because sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you turns out to be the best thing that ever could. My name is Dorothy Williams, but everyone calls me Dot. I'm 64 years old, married to Frank for 42 years, and until last Thursday afternoon, I thought I knew exactly who I was. A devoted wife, a supportive mother-in-law, and apparently the biggest fool in Ohio. Let me back up to Tuesday, 2 days before my world imploded. I was in my kitchen making Frank's favorite pot roast when our son Mark called. "Mom, Sam and I might be late to dinner Sunday. She's got that client meeting running over." Samantha, my daughter-in-law, worked in real estate. Beautiful, ambitious, and always perfectly put together. The kind of woman who made me feel frumpy in my comfortable cardigans and sensible shoes. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll keep everything warm." "You're the best, Mom. Sam always says how lucky we are to have you." Right. Lucky them indeed. Wednesday evening, Frank seemed restless, kept checking his phone, claimed he had a conference call with his old business partner. Frank retired from his accounting firm 3 years ago, but occasionally helped with complex cases. "Might run late tomorrow," he said, not meeting my eyes. "This case is more complicated than I thought. 42 years of marriage teaches you to read the signs." But I pushed down the suspicion, telling myself I was being paranoid. Frank had never given me reason to doubt him. Thursday afternoon, I came home early from my volunteer shift at the hospital. My back was acting up, and I just wanted a hot bath and some quiet time. I parked in the garage, entered through the kitchen, and headed upstairs to change clothes. That's when I heard it. Soft laughter coming from our bedroom. Female laughter that wasn't mine. My heart hammered as I approached our door. It was slightly ajar. Through the gap, I could see them clearly. Frank and Samantha. But the moment that broke me wasn't seeing them together. It was when she opened her eyes, looked directly at me standing in the doorway, and smiled. Not embarrassed, not guilty. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds, watching my entire life crumble. Then I quietly stepped back and closed the door with a soft click. The old Dot would have screamed, cried, thrown things. But standing in that hallway, listening to them continue their affair just feet away from me, something cold and calculating settled in my chest. I walked downstairs, sat at my kitchen table, and began planning exactly how to destroy them both. The rest of Thursday passed in a strange haze. I made dinner, acted normal, even complimented Frank on his tie when he came down. Meanwhile, my brain was working like a computer, cataloging every detail, every lie, every opportunity. "How was your conference call?" I asked over meatloaf. "Productive," he said, not looking up from his plate. "Probably have a few more sessions this week." More sessions. Right. I wondered if Sam told Mark she'd be having more client meetings too. That night, Frank showered longer than usual. I pretended to read in bed, watching him through my peripheral vision. He was almost humming, the satisfied sound of a man who thought he was getting away with something clever. When he finally crawled into bed, I wanted to vomit thinking about where those hands had been just hours earlier. Instead, I rolled over and said goodnight like I had thousands of times before. Except this time, I was already 3 steps ahead of him. Friday morning, I called my friend Patricia. Pat had been through a nasty divorce 5 years ago and learned some hard lessons about protecting yourself financially. "Dot, you sound strange. Everything all right? I need some advice. Hypothetically speaking, if someone discovered their spouse was cheating, what would be the smartest first move?" There was a long pause. Hypothetically? Completely hypothetical. Hypothetically, that someone should immediately secure documentation of all joint accounts, assets and debts before confronting anyone. Evidence first, emotions later. And Dot? Hypothetically speaking, that someone should also take pictures. Pictures. I hadn't thought of that. That afternoon, while Frank was at his meeting with Sam, I went through our home office with systematic precision. 42 years of marriage meant Frank had grown complacent about hiding things. I found our insurance policies, retirement account statements, the deed to our house, even his old business partnership agreement. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Frank had been moving money, small amounts over the past 6 months, transferred to an account I'd never seen before. Nothing huge, nothing I'd notice in my weekly budget check, but it added up to almost $30,000. My devoted husband wasn't just cheating on me, he was stealing from me too. I photographed everything with my phone, uploaded the images to a new cloud account, then put everything back exactly as I'd found it. By the time Frank came home looking satisfied and guilty, I was back in my kitchen peeling potatoes for dinner. "Good day?" I asked sweetly. "Exhausting," he replied. "This case is really taking it out of me." I bet it was. Saturday brought our usual routine. Frank played golf, I did the grocery shopping and caught up on laundry. Normal suburban life, except I spent my morning at the bank opening a new account and my afternoon visiting my old friend Margaret Chen, who happened to be one of the best divorce attorneys in the city. "Dot Williams," Margaret said, genuine surprise in her voice. "I haven't seen you in years. How's Frank?" "That's actually why I'm here." I laid out everything, the affair, the money transfers, the systematic deception. Margaret listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "How long do you think this has been going on?" "Based on the bank records? At least 6 months. But knowing Sam, probably longer." "And you're certain you want to proceed?" I thought about Sam's smile, about Frank's lies, about 42 years of devotion being thrown away for some midlife excitement. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Margaret smiled grimly. "Then let's make sure they never see it coming." Sunday dinner arrived like a performance where everyone knew their lines except the audience. Frank carved the roast with his usual precision, while Sam complimented my green bean casserole. Mark talked about work, completely oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around my dining room table. "Mom, this is delicious," Sam said, her voice warm with false affection. "You really outdid yourself." I watched her fork another bite, wondering how someone could sit at my table, eat my food, and smile at me after what she'd done. The audacity was almost impressive. "Thank you, dear. I put extra love into it this time." Frank choked slightly on his wine. Sam's eyes flicked to his, just for a second, but I caught it. They had signals now, little glances and shared secrets. How romantic. After dinner, while the men watched football, Sam helped me clear dishes. We worked in my kitchen, side by side, like we had dozens of times before. Except now I knew exactly what those perfectly manicured hands had been doing. "Dot," she said quietly, "I wanted to thank you again for recommending me to the Hendersons. That commission really helped us out." "Of course, sweetheart. Family helps family." She smiled that same triumphant smile I'd seen Thursday afternoon. "You're the best mother-in-law anyone could ask for." The urge to throw my good china at her lying face was almost overwhelming. Instead, I smiled back and handed her another plate to dry. I try my best. Monday morning brought phase 2 of my plan. While Frank was at the gym, or so he claimed, I called Mark at work. "Mom, everything okay? You never call this early." "I'm fine, honey. I just wanted to ask about Sam's work schedule. I'm planning a surprise birthday party for Mrs. Henderson, and I thought Sam might want to help coordinate since she knows her preferences." "Oh, that's sweet, Mom. But Sam's schedule is crazy right now. She's got these big client meetings almost every afternoon this week. Yesterday she didn't get home until after 10. My stomach twisted. Yesterday was Sunday. We'd had dinner together until 7. Then Sam had left with Mark around 8:30. What client meeting happens on a Sunday night until 10? "Well, I'm sure she's working very hard." "Yeah, this new client is really demanding. High maintenance. You know how it is." High maintenance indeed. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen staring at my coffee mug. A gift from Mark, last Mother's Day. "World's best mom," in cheerful blue letters. The irony was suffocating. My phone rang, Frank's number. "Hi, sweetheart," I answered, proud of how normal my voice sounded. "Hey, Dot, I'm going to be late again tonight. This case is really heating up." "Of course it is. Will you be home for dinner?" "Better not count on it. Don't wait up." The call ended, and I found myself laughing. Actually laughing out loud in my empty kitchen. The sheer brazenness of it all was almost admirable. They thought they were so clever, so sophisticated with their little affair. They had no idea what was coming. I spent the rest of Monday implementing Margaret's advice. Every joint account, every shared asset, every piece of our financial life got documented and secured. I opened my own checking account, rerouted my Social Security direct deposit, and changed the passwords on everything I could access. By Tuesday morning, I was ready for Phase 3. I called Sam's real estate office. Williams Realty, this is Jessica. Hi Jessica, this is Dorothy Williams, Sam's mother-in-law. I was hoping to surprise her with lunch today. Could you tell me when might be a good time? I know she's been so busy with that demanding new client. There was a pause. Mrs. Williams, Sam actually took the week off. She said she was going to visit her sister in Michigan. Didn't she tell you? My blood went cold. Oh, of course. I must have gotten my weeks confused. Thank you, dear. I hung up and stared at the phone. Sam hadn't taken time off to visit her sister. She'd taken time off to spend entire days with my husband while I volunteered at the hospital and ran errands around town like the oblivious fool they thought I was. But this lie was going to be their undoing, because now I had exactly what Margaret said I'd need. Concrete evidence of deception that even Mark couldn't ignore. Time to watch their perfect little world implode. Wednesday morning, I woke up with the kind of clarity that comes from finally understanding exactly what you're dealing with. Frank was already downstairs, probably planning his day of work with my daughter-in-law. Morning, sweetheart, I called cheerfully as I entered the kitchen. He jumped slightly, spilling coffee on his shirt. Morning, Dot. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Too excited about today. His face went pale. Excited about what? Oh, I thought I'd surprise Sam with a visit. Maybe take her to lunch while she's off work this week. Frank's coffee mug slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Off work? I tilted my head innocently. Didn't Mark tell you? Sam took the week off to visit her sister in Michigan. Such a devoted daughter, that Sam. Though I'm surprised she didn't mention it to you during your conference calls. I watched Frank's face cycle through confusion, panic, and something that looked like admiration. He realized I knew, but he couldn't figure out how much. I should get going. Big day ahead. I'm sure it is. Give my love to your business partner. 20 minutes after Frank left, his phone rang on the kitchen counter. He'd forgotten it in his panic. The caller ID read, Sam. I answered on the fourth ring. Frank? Thank God. I've been trying to call you. Something's wrong. Dorothy knows something. She called my office asking about lunch, and Jessica told her I took the week off. She knows, Frank. She knows. This isn't Frank. Dead silence. Then a whispered, oh God. Hello, Samantha. Having a nice week off in Michigan? Dot. I can explain. I'm sure you can. You're very creative. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to come to my house right now. Frank will already be here by the time you arrive. I'm calling him next. We're going to have a little family meeting. Dot, please, this isn't what you think. Samantha, you have exactly 30 minutes to get here. If you're not at my front door by then, I'm calling Mark and explaining why his wife has been lying about her whereabouts while his father has been stealing money from our joint accounts. Another long silence. You know about the money? I know about everything. 30 minutes. I hung up and immediately dialed Frank's work number. Patterson and Associates, this is Linda. Hi, Linda, this is Dorothy Williams. Is Frank available? It's important. Mrs. Williams, I'm sorry, but Frank isn't here. He doesn't come in on Wednesdays anymore. Not since he retired. Is everything all right? Everything's perfect, Linda. Thank you. So Frank had been lying about where he went every Wednesday, too. I wondered what other truths were about to surface. I spent the next 25 minutes setting up my laptop on the dining room table and brewing a fresh pot of coffee. If we were going to destroy 42 years of marriage and 20 years of family relationships, we might as well be civilized about it. Frank arrived first, looking haggard and desperate. Dot, we need to talk. Yes, we do. Sit down. You don't understand. It's not what it looks like. Really? Because it looked like my husband of 42 years was having sex with my son's wife in our marital bed. But please, enlighten me about what I didn't understand. Frank collapsed into his chair just as Sam's car pulled into the driveway. I watched through the window as she sat in her car for a full minute, probably trying to figure out how to spin this disaster. She finally walked through my front door, looking like she'd aged 5 years in the last hour. Sit down, Samantha. Let's discuss your interesting interpretation of family loyalty. But before anyone could say another word, we heard a car door slam outside. Mark's voice carried through the window. "Mom? Dad? Sam's car is here, but she's supposed to be in Michigan. What's going on?" Frank and Sam looked at each other in pure terror, and I smiled for the first time in days. Mark walked through my front door expecting normal Wednesday afternoon life, and instead found his wife and father sitting at my dining room table, looking like they'd been caught robbing a bank. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes moving between the three of us. "Sam, why aren't you in Michigan? And Dad, I thought you had meetings today." "Sit down, honey," I said gently. "There are some things you need to know." "Mom, you're scaring me. Is someone sick? Is it Grandma?" "No one's sick, Mark, but our family has been living a lie for months, and it's time you knew the truth." I opened my laptop and pulled up the photos I'd taken of our bank statements. "Your father has been moving money from our joint accounts into a private account. $30,000 over the past 6 months. Mark's face went white. "Dad, what is she talking about?" Frank couldn't meet his son's eyes. "Mark, it's complicated. And your wife," I continued calmly, "has been lying about her work schedule. She told you she had client meetings every afternoon this week, but she actually took vacation time. Her office thinks she's visiting her sister in Michigan." "That's impossible," Mark said, but his voice was uncertain. "Sam, tell her she's wrong." Sam opened her mouth, but no words came out. "The reason they've been lying," I said, my voice steady as granite, "is because they've been having an affair. I caught them in our bedroom last Thursday afternoon." The silence that followed was deafening. Mark looked from me to Sam to Frank, waiting for someone to deny it, to explain it away, to make it make sense. No one did. "Sam!" Mark's voice cracked like a teenager's. "Please tell me this isn't true." Sam started crying, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration at being caught. "Mark, I never meant for this to happen. It just did." "You never meant for this to happen?" Mark repeated slowly. "Or you never meant to get caught?" "Both," Frank said quietly, finally speaking up. "We never meant for any of this to happen." I watched my son's face as the reality hit him. His wife and his father had betrayed him in the most devastating way possible. The two people who should have protected him had destroyed him instead. "How long?" Mark asked. Frank and Sam exchanged glances. "About a year," Sam whispered. "A year." Mark sat down heavily. "A year of lying to my face. A year of you pretending to love me while you were sleeping with my father." "Mark, I do love you," Sam started. "Don't." His voice was ice. "Don't you dare tell me you love me after what you've done." I reached over and squeezed my son's hand. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." "How did you find out?" "I came home early Thursday and saw them together." "And you've known since Thursday?" He looked at me with something like awe. "You've been planning this whole confrontation for 6 days? Your mother is more strategic than we gave her credit for," Frank said, and there was something almost like pride in his voice. "Don't speak about me like I'm not here," I snapped. "And don't act like you're impressed. You forfeited any right to opinions about me when you decided to steal from me and sleep with our daughter-in-law." Mark stood up abruptly. "I can't be here right now. I can't look at either of you." "Mark, wait," Sam pleaded. "We can work through this. We can go to counseling." "Counseling?" Mark turned around, his face filled with rage I'd never seen before. "You want to go to counseling after you've been screwing my father for a year?" "Please don't leave," Sam begged. "We have 8 years together. That has to count for something." "What about the 42 years your lover had with my mother? Did that count for anything when you were spreading your legs in her bed?" The crude language was so unlike my gentle son that it shocked everyone into silence. "I want you out of our house," Mark said to Sam. "Tonight. Take your things and go stay with your sister. The real one, in Michigan, if she'll have you." "Mark, please." "And you," he turned to Frank, "stay away from me. I don't want to see you, talk to you, or hear from you until I decide what I'm going to do about this." Mark headed for the door, then stopped and looked back at me. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry they did this to you, and I'm sorry I didn't see it coming." After he left, the three of us sat in my dining room listening to the clock tick. Finally, Sam spoke. "What happens now?" I looked at her beautiful, tear-streaked face and felt absolutely nothing. "Now, you learn what consequences look like." That evening, After Sam packed her bags and Frank slunk off to our guest room like a scolded dog, I sat alone in my kitchen with a cup of tea and my laptop. Margaret had asked me to document everything while it was fresh, and I wanted to be thorough. But as I typed up the details of our confrontation, my phone kept